Good evening and welcome to Inside D2Football. We have a full house again this week. Back to the full five head screenshot along with Matt Witwicky, Coach Poe, Justin Palizzi, Chris Ferguson, and Tony Nicolette. I am Chuck Bittner. Guys, we have a lot to talk about from a very busy week 4. But before we dive into a review of some of the top games, some of the top results, I do think it's important that we spend just a minute talking about the fact we did actually lose a handful of games this past week. There were several that were canceled, a few that were postponed and rescheduled. We actually had 3 that were played today. And of course, those cancellations, postponements, games that were rescheduled was all due to the effects of Hurricane Helene in the southeast. If you followed some of the photos, some of the videos on the news or on some of the socials, the impact in several areas in a lot of different communities in the southeast, and it goes from Florida into Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, parts of Alabama, I believe. There are some places where it's really, really bad. So any of the games that got canceled, it certainly was warranted. I know that there was I saw some tweets online. It actually started when Appalachian State canceled their game. There were some people from Liberty who were doing a lot of shooting from the hip on Twitter. Trust me, any games that were canceled, they needed to be canceled. And we certainly support those decisions. In fact, I think, guys, there's a possibility that there could even be some games this coming weekend that get canceled. We don't know that yet, but some of the universities are really hurting. Some of the towns that they are in are really hurting as well. So keep those communities in mind when you see opportunities to help down the road. Please consider that. And we'll share any news that's, of course, important to Division II football. We'll share that as soon as we can. So thank you for letting me say that. Guys, let's actually take a look at the week that was in D2 football. We'll start with the bingo card, looking at our top 25. We did highlight the one top 25. Unfortunately, it was canceled. Valdosta and West Alabama was actually the first game of the weekend to kind of be pulled off the board. Very disappointed, obviously, that didn't happen. It certainly was with good reason. Whit, let me throw this out to you before we dive into the review of some of the big games. What else here, as far as wins and losses within the top 25, really kind of stands out to you?
Yeah, when we look at this grouping here, I'm not really sure if we saw like an Indianapolis, for example, dropping a game right here and now. And Chuck, when I look at the rest of the group here, and, Augustana probably a little bit of the same, but I'm looking at this 25, Chuck, and right in that, let's say 12 to 20 type range. I think we're going to see a whole lot of movement. We may even see some new teams kind of parachute in as others leave. And I think we're going to see probably more movement here in our next poll than we've seen in a while. And as you mentioned earlier, Chuck, at 3 and 18, those two squads, Valdosta and West Alabama. As you kind of alluded to in our opening, there's going to be a lot of ball clubs here that are going to be trying to figure out how to play football games over the next few weeks because of life challenges. Kids, how are we going to go ahead and still go to class? Just general type of needs that they're going to have. And I think that's something that we need to be very mindful of in the Southeast right now. And, football and everything we're talking about is not quite as important, that's for sure. But Chuck, looking at this right now, I really have a feeling that we're going to see a little bit of a shakeup. I don't think it's going to affect a whole lot in the top 10. That's kind of how I view it.
Yeah, I think when you have some teams that take a loss kind of in that 15 to 25 range, it's generally when we see some teams that might slide out and then a few new ones that will jump in. But let's actually start up at the very top of our top 25. We had a top 25 matchup in Searcy. Whit, if you tuned in a couple minutes late, I'm sorry to say you missed it.
Yeah, let's go ahead and go to the video, Chuck, and try and follow along with the scoring because it happens very, very rapidly. You're going to see Braden Jay get loose, and the defender gets out in open field and doesn't even want any piece of him. And all of a sudden, we're off to the races in a hurry. Right away, first play from scrimmage. Then you see Henderson trying to throw the ball in a little bit of a pick route here, and all of a sudden Harding's got the ball going the other direction. And this one just had a feeling right from the jump, like, okay, Henderson's going to need to survive this quarter. And, Harding's defense, like we talked about, still really, really good. Look at how elusive Braden Jay is. He's a different level than he was a year ago. He was good a year ago. Now he's, doing stuff like this. And you pair that up with Blake Delacruz. Oh, yeah, the jackhammer doing the dive, going, for 4 scores. Oh, there's Braden Jay again. So once you start getting used to trying to stop the dive, they hit you with the home run on the outside. This was, I thought, Chuck, the game that we needed to see Harding play against a good opponent. Let's not kid. I mean, Henderson State was in the top 25 for a reason here. I don't know if they still will be, but they were. And this looked like Harding was playing Northwest Oklahoma State or somebody at the bottom of their league. That's how incredibly dominant this performance was. The Bisons only give up 4 first downs, over 600 yards offense. I was by halftime 49-0. I mean, are you serious? So I think they passed a big test here early in this new season in really resounding fashion.
Yeah, no doubt, Whit. And, because the game was already, I think, 28-0 by the time I got to tune into it after tracking some other games, you start noticing some other things. And one of the things that really stood out, we saw it in a couple of the highlights there. That stadium was standing room only all night. Absolutely packed house, incredible environment there. So, national championships will do that for you. But congratulations to the folks there in Harding for really getting behind this program and continuing to push it forward. Guys, we know that the road to the national championship runs through this super region, and the road for this super region runs through Harding. So, I really take notice of that home field advantage because that could be really meaningful in November. So an incredible performance there for the Bisons.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to our next one. The other top 25 matchup that we had was West Florida going up to Grand Valley State. Tony, you saw this one from a couple of different angles. You were actually on the call for Flow Sports. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so this one had a lot of excitement to it. Obviously, again, a matchup of ranked opponents. And, I think West Florida came in. You could tell they'd had a bad taste in their mouth from dropping that close one to a rival the week before in West Alabama. And Grand Valley, had kind of not really put some opponents away that they had chances to in the first couple of games. And this game actually started out somewhat similarly in that, Grand Valley gets their first possession, goes down and gets a score, gets that lead, and then they didn't score again until the third quarter. And actually, there'll be a highlight here coming up where Grand Valley gives up a fumble return for a touchdown. So even though I'm sorry, I take that back. Grand Valley did score at the end of the half. So it was 14-7 at the break. And even though Grand Valley had really kind of dominated the game, there was still only a one possession game. But this is one of the things that you saw in that highlight that was thematic throughout this game was Marcus Stokes just taking heat all day. 5 sacks in the first half by Grand Valley, 8 total in the game. He took way more hits than that. At one point on the call, I did say to my partner, Brian Fongers, that you had to give him credit because he was tough. He answered the bell, despite the fact that he was just getting clobbered every chance that the Lakers had. So, but, Khalil Eichelberger with a 50-yard kind of dagger here late in the third quarter. Possession earlier, you saw another one-handed grab by Kyle Knott, who seems to put those highlights out seemingly almost every week. And so, yeah, this ended up being a pretty dominant performance by the Lakers once everything settled itself out. I mean, the defense only gave up, I think, 17 net yards rushing while posting 312 on their own. And so, this is that physical brand of football that Grand Valley likes to play. And, I had actually several people tell me from the field level that they were, watching parts of the game and they were like, hey, West Florida's big. And they were, and they had a lot of speed, but I think there was a little bit of a statement in this game, too, by Grand Valley that just not only with their size, but their speed, I think West Florida was a little bit surprised by it. And you could tell that, particularly up front on the offensive line. West Florida was just not able to handle the speed of the front seven of Grand Valley, and it showed all day long.
Yeah, great result there for the Lakers. If anybody had any concerns or any thoughts about the game at La Crosse, and we already talked about that, or the game with La Crosse, we kind of already talked about that. This was the Grand Valley State that we know. So a tremendous performance here for the Lakers. Let's head to the PSAC. This was one of the games that we had kind of had circled on the calendar for the PSAC heading into this season. It was a great game a year ago when the two teams played at Kutztown. This one was at East Stroudsburg. First thing you know about this one, guys, the whole second half was played in a steady rainfall throughout the entire second half. Pretty consistent raining on both teams. But this is really interesting. If you look at the box score, East Stroudsburg actually did get out to a 14-0 lead in this game. They had a very nice, impressive opening drive, got up 7-0. It was a long, it was like 12 plays, very long scoring drive for the Warriors. Got a 3-and-out, and then they got a 92-yard play to go up 14-0 very early in this game. But the thing about Kutztown is that they are a team that's very, very difficult to rattle. They certainly don't panic. They stick to their game plan. 14-0, down 14-0 is not where they want to be, obviously. But they know that there's a long way to go. They didn't panic. They just stuck to what they did. Started getting some stops. That's really where it has to start when you're down a few scores. You want to get some momentum offensively, but really you got to start getting some stops. And after that 14-0 lead, they really started clamping down on the Warriors offense, had a couple 3-and-outs, and then started to get the offense going a little bit. And I do think it was really important that they answered those scores and got this game even before the half, because that's when the weather really did turn south. And in that second half, the Kutztown defense really kind of asserted itself. So they had actually gotten up by 2 scores. They scored 27 unanswered. East Stroudsburg did get a late touchdown. I think that last score on the board was in the final minutes. So, they had an opportunity to make it a little dramatic, but, Kutztown really kind of asserted themselves in that second half and showed why we certainly think that they are the team to beat in the PSAC East.
Absolutely. Chuck, when I was watching some of that game, the conditions looked just miserable for it, and it seemed like Kutztown was going to be. That seemed like the kind of conditions that they'd be able to kind of weather through. Is that kind of the same thought you had when that game kind of went into the second half and that's raining sideways?
Yeah, I think so. They're a team that's built to weather a rainstorm a little bit better. When you get into conditions like that, of course, you want to be able to run the ball, and they were able to do that. They ended up when you get into conditions like that against a quality opponent, and you can put up 200 yards on the ground for the game, that gives you a real good chance to win the game. So, yeah, absolutely. I do think that played to their advantage a little bit, but again, I also think it was really important that they were able to get that game even before the weather got really bad heading into that second half.
Yeah.
All right. Next, back to the MIAA. Well, Emporia State did not establish a winning streak over Northwest Missouri. We thought maybe they could do it. Unfortunately, their winning streak ends at 1. Whit, I think you watched this one this afternoon. What are some of the takeaways?
Mixed feelings. When I see, though, that 7 turnovers for the Bearcats, and they still find a way to win the football game. Right at the very end of the game, actually, first off, Gunnar Gundy gets knocked out of the game just before halftime, kind of gets sandwiched between 2 defenders. May have taken a helmet to helmet or a shot in the helmet, I should say, not intentional, just kind of in the midst of being between 2 players. And he did not return. Now, he wasn't especially, successful during his window of time in that game. But at the same time, Emporia finds himself at the 15-yard line with a minute left, having a chance to win this football game. And they were not able to make anything happen. They got a sack from there. Then Shane Fredrickson, a really good defender on Northwest Missouri State, goes up and tips a ball that was intended for Tyler Common, which would have been the winner. So, Northwest, it's one of those deals where, if they can survive 7 turnovers and have their defense bull their neck that way, this is the kind of football games they are used to winning in the past. Mm-hmm. Emporia State ends up throwing the ball 59 times in this game for 160 yards. So, the Northwest Missouri defense ended up kind of being the story of this game. And it seemed like it was time, Chuck, for Emporia State to probably not squeak out one of those close games. They had won by what, 5-3-3 or something like that in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
And when you're in that many close games, sometimes it's not going to go your way.
Yeah, pretty tough to come away with 7 takeaways and not be able to take advantage of those. So definitely a tough one. But man, Northwest Missouri State. I mean, we kind of cautioned after those first 2 games. We're not calling time of death yet, but man, we kind of wanted to, and now look where they are. So congrats to the Bearcats.
The paddles were out.
Yeah. Not only do they get their season back on track, they kind of avenge the loss to Emporia from a year ago that ended a long streak over the Hornets. So, but they're right back in it. So congrats to them. All right, back across the country to the Northeast 10. We kind of expected this to be the game of the year in the Northeast 10. Now, there's still some others coming up. Assumption's going to have something to say about it, but we kind of expected that this was going to be the game of the year. I don't know if it ultimately will be, but it certainly has been to date. You can just tell by the final score and the stats on this one. Really competitive football game. I do think that really the difference in this one was that New Haven was kind of able to dictate the pace of it. They kind of got up a little bit early. Bentley was able to kind of stay with them, but the Chargers were really kind of able to force Bentley to match their level of play throughout this. And to give some credit to the Falcons, they were able to do that a couple of times. They got this back to a tie ball game near the half after being down 2 scores early on. So they did battle, and they were able to make this a really competitive game, but it just felt like every time Bentley looked like they might be able to make the plays that are going to turn this into their favor, New Haven would come right back with the answers for that. So some superlatives on both sides of the ball. Really, when you look at the stats, guys, for New Haven, it was the rushing attack, over 400 yards rushing as a team, 406 on the ground. Total opposite for Bentley, 457 yards passing. So if you like running the ball, if you like passing, you got a little bit of both, not so much defense in this one. But Christopher Ace, the star running back for the Chargers, career high 238 yards and 2 touchdowns, real difference maker for him. But also had a teammate, Zon Laney, also huge day, 17 carries, 186 yards and a touchdown. But again, it wasn't just on their side of the ball. Brett Pullman, quarterback from Bentley, massive day for him. Over 400 yards passing, 457 and 4 touchdowns. So just a lot of action, very competitive day on a beautiful day up in the Northeast. So really fun game to watch and really puts New Haven, I think, in the driver's seat for the Northeast 10 Conference Championship.
No doubt about it.
All right. Next, we talked about this one a little bit last week, I think, and Tony and I spent some time talking about this one on GLIAC Weekly. Tony, we kind of felt like, if Saginaw is going to, have a chance to maybe make a push for postseason, this was a game that would really kind of maybe set them on their way, but also definitely one that they were going to have, and they found a way to do it.
They found a way to do it, and this one was another rainstorm game. I think this was remnants of Helene that this one was played in. But, one of the things that just keeps coming back around to me, you look at the Northwest result, you look at this result, ugly football, man. And that was what Saginaw found a way to do, was win ugly in this one, because they got outgained, they got outpossessed slightly, they lost the turnover battle, and yet they found a way to win in the end. And so, the reality of this is, as you can see here, it was 17-7 at the half. Saginaw did get it to within a score in the third quarter. And then in the fourth quarter, that's when Indianapolis, who had really protected the ball pretty well throughout the entirety of the game, had their 2 missteps, and those were Gavin Sukup interceptions. And, of course, one of them was Eli Gordon taking it back 70 yards per score to give the Cards the lead. And then Sukup takes him right back down, gets another touchdown. And then Saginaw Valley gets the ball back and makes good on an answer with a Mason McKenzie touchdown pass to Terrence Brown. And then Sukup's second interception is when they're trying to drive down and take the lead back, and that seals the game for Saginaw Valley. So, we talked about it, you're right, Chuck, on GLIAC Weekly, that this was one that Saginaw Valley kind of had to have. and credit to them to go, on the road against an undefeated ranked opponent. That's, that's the choice of the coaches to win their conference and to get that win. And again, ugly's ugly, but a W's a W.
Absolutely. And they will be glad to have that one. So great result there for the Cardinals. And it'd be interesting to see where Indy lands in the top 25, assuming they do stay in the top 25. So we'll find out more on that tomorrow. Back to the MIAA. We're kind of crisscrossing the country here. KFerg, Central Oklahoma got into the top 25. This definitely looked like a test for them. If it was, I think they passed with flying colors.
Well. I'm here to tell you that Central Oklahoma's on the rise, y'all. All I have to say is Adam Durrell knows how to win, and he's got his team rolling. Now, 2 weeks ago when we were talking about this game, or talking about Central Oklahoma in general, Terrell Davis, the wide receiver, had 200 yards receiving. And he did again this game. And that's how amazing his performance was. Both of these teams, actually, just like New Haven and Bentley, also had over 500 yards of total offense. So defense be gone. But the difference being that Fort Hays really couldn't do much in the red zone, only scoring 2 out of the 5 times. You talk about turnover and downs, talk about interception, missing field goals, whatever could go wrong, and as you see here, the score, it wasn't even close. I mean, when Central Oklahoma laid that the haymakers after the first quarter, that was it. I mean, it was kind of like Harding, except that you actually had scoring from the other side. And the lead just stretched out, even further than that. So, I mean, you guys mentioned that middle of the poll that is kind of like questionable. It's really soft. You don't really know what to do with it. Well, I tell you one thing, Central Oklahoma sure looks like a worthy candidate to move pretty far based on what they've done. And if you're Fort Hays, man, gosh, we had so much hope for you. And it's just not working out as we thought. So there's a lot to think about because, man, the MIAA is looking really competitive, and you're kind of falling behind pretty quickly. So you guys, they need to figure it out real fast. So back to you, Chuck.
I agree, KFerg. That sounds like a conversation for MIAA Weekly. So look for that later on this week.
Nice plug.
All right, let's do a little roundup elsewhere around the country. We'll kind of go through these fairly quickly. Whit, I think this one's yours. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I thought for Mines here that this felt like a get back to normal offensive game for them. Evan Foster comes out roaring in this one. 5 touchdown passes in the first quarter. Landon Walker returns. McLeod, Shealy, they had all the weapons going in this one. And, it makes you wonder a little bit. And don't get me wrong, Black Hill State is, not the 85 Bears defensively. But at the same time, they were able to really look a whole lot like Mines football that we've known leading up to this year, if we're going to be really frank. So I thought it was a very impressive win for them in the way they went about it. And, then from there, if I take a look on the other portion of the screen, we have one of the more dangerous teams in the North. Minnesota State Moorhead beats another top 25 team. And, despite the fact a week ago, it didn't look like they showed up against McKendree. And, they won this one here 43-41. Jack Strand, their quarterback, throws for, over 400 yards. It was kind of like running game optional. And Augustana, who had looked very good defensively, does a great job stopping the run. But the Dragons were able to go ahead and kind of circumvent this whole thing by saying, hey, we're just going to throw the ball 70 times a game. So I don't know who they are week to week, Chuck. And we have some other teams that are like that in the country. You can't really call a squad like that a top 25 team, but they're the kind of team that can take down a top 25 team. How about we go there?
Yeah. You don't want to play them if you're a top 25. That is for sure. A couple of other results of note. Justin, what do you got for us?
Yeah, Carson Newman on the road against Catawba came away with a 35-34 victory. This game was back and forth all day. They had to go down the field in just around a minute and a half to come back and seal the victory to Carson Newman. So it was really good to see them execute in a high-pressure situation towards the end of the game there and have a little bit of a hurry up in them. So, again, a big win for Carson Newman staying undefeated. And then Ashland, guys, don't look now, but Ashland's 2-2, and they're undefeated. They're undefeated in conference play. They defeat Tiffin 21-12. So climbing back up the ladder, guys. I know Tony, you got something to say about that one, buddy, but they're climbing back, baby.
No, Ashland looks like they're possibly on pace to repeat the same season that they had a year ago when they started 1-3 and then won the rest of them. So we'll see. Time will tell. K-Farg, some interesting results here. What do you got?
And I tell you one thing, Central Missouri, man, I'm talking about the Centrals tonight. So Central Missouri, yet again, escaping with another 1-point win. You know, they're kind of the equivalent of having your foot to the accelerator, and you're not really getting very far right now. 633 yards of offense, and you can only win by 1. I mean, that says a whole lot, man. Wow. But hey, they're getting it done. I mean, there's that. But it's I'm a little concerned here.
I talked to some of their coaches last week when they were at Davenport. They're feeling like that if they can survive until week 5, week 6, and they get a few guys back, they can really take off from there. But you're right, surviving is all they're doing, especially in these last 2.
Right. And then in the CIAA, a pair of interesting results. You know, my column, the only team I didn't pick to win that did win was Virginia State. Thought that they were kind of like down and out, but Fayetteville State really doesn't have the offense to kind of keep up. And we saw 3 long touchdown passes from Romello Williams to Kevin Gales to pull away on this one. And then Winston-Salem State. Still haven't lost in Division II play yet. They put down Bowie State, and really that 14 was really scoring at 7 points at the end of the game. It really didn't matter. Bowie State looked out of sorts, and Winston State looked pretty good, especially in the passing game. We've kind of seen them using the run quite a bit, but it was really the breakout game for Dalen Lee, the quarterback. And it really sets up a very intriguing game this weekend against a Virginia Union team that, returned to form against Shaw and put, man, they put Shaw away so quickly. It's one of those games that you blink twice and you're like, what happened here? And I might as well move on somewhere else. So very intriguing Saturday coming up in the CIAA.
All right. And a few that I want to touch on. Frostburg State getting a 1-point win over Mercyhurst. Mercyhurst in its first year as an FCS team, so that in itself is notable. But here's what was really interesting about this one. The Bobcats opened the game with 2 onside kicks. They won, I believe they had to kick off to start the game. Mercyhurst deferred. Mercyhurst actually elected to receive. Frostburg did an onside kick, recovered, went down and scored, and then repeated the same thing with a different kicker, no less. Recovered it, went down and scored. The Lakers actually did, play a lot better after that. But boy, playing from behind the whole game, the Bobcats were able to do it. So how about that? I don't know that I've ever seen that. I've seen teams do back-to-back onside kicks. Of course, I've seen teams open a game with an onside kick, but to do it twice, pretty incredible. Fairmont State, this was one of the more exciting results of the entire weekend, one of the more exciting games, back and forth, nip and tuck the whole way. Fairmont State gets out of this with a 52-49 win. Here's one of the really notable performances from that game. Fairmont State quarterback Nino Marzullo, a freshman, making his first career start in college football, 28 of 44 for 435 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he also ran for 3 touchdowns in his very first college start for Fairmont State. How is that for a debut? A remarkable stat line for him. And another very interesting individual performance that I wanted to know, and this is a little bit self-serving, I'll admit that this is the game that I was at. Bloomsburg quarterback KJ Riley, nice day throwing the ball, 17 to 22 for 280 yards. But here's what's really notable. He ran for a touchdown. He passed for 2 touchdowns. He kicked 2 extra points. He kicked a field goal, and he punted 4 times, pinning 2 of them inside the 20-yard line. So he was responsible for all 23 points in that game. Incredible individual performance for him, kind of a do-it-all type of a day. So congrats to those guys for some amazing individual performances. Whit, when you put in a day like that, I think you deserve some Boss's Pizza and Chicken. Those guys got to be hungry. What's on the menu now at Boss's that you would recommend for somebody who's coming off a day like that and they've got an appetite?
Well, the stuff with the lettuce and the healthy stuff in the bottom right corner is not the answer to that question. But
I don't know, man. Don't sleep on the taco pizza, Whit.
Sleeping on the taco pizza.
Don't do it.
And I would take the barbecue pizza up, barbecue chicken pizza up in the top right, along with a side of fettuccine Alfredo in the top left. But you know, and then just for enjoyment, go ahead and have a little bit of spaghetti with meatballs. But you know, the Bosses has got all kinds of options for you. Didn't even have any breakfast or any dessert pizza or breakfast pizza on this slide, which I'm going to have that for next week, Chuck. But you know what we also have, Chuck? We have big news. You know what that big news is? The 19th anniversary of Boss's Pizza and Chicken, Chuck. Are they offering 19% off? Hell no. They're offering 50% off of all pizzas on Monday and Tuesday of this week, with 19% of proceeds are donated to Feeding South Dakota. So how you like them apples, Chuck?
A lot. I'm in.
Are you? Okay.
I love it.
Well, I'll get them to deliver here, and then we'll figure out a way to ship it on out there to PA, and we'll be good.
That sounds like a good time. All right. Well, and of course, we thank Boss's Pizza and Chicken for their ongoing support. And we thank all of you and Bosses for letting us have some weekly fun with this. Obviously, it's not really a laughing matter. We're so grateful for their support and very grateful for all of you that patronize them when you're in one of their locations because we ask you to. So thank you very much to Boss's Pizza and Chicken. And with that, I think we are ready to move on to week number 5. What's on the undercard here that looks interesting? I'm just going to, I'm going to put somebody on the spot here. Coach Poe, what here in the week 5 undercard looks really interesting to you?
So there's a couple that really kind of stand out. I think Minot State, Wayne State, that's intriguing to me. That's a game that kind of catches my attention. Winston-Salem, off to a 4-1 start. I think that's exciting too. Virginia Union, I'm curious to see if they can get it back. You know, I think I kind of felt like they fell off a little bit. Curious to see if they come back with it. And then I think obviously Emory and Henry sitting at 3-1 right now in the SAC in my world is didn't necessarily anticipate seeing that this year. So Lenore Ryan goes on the road there. Last week when they were on the road at Mars Hill, they got behind early and had to come back and battle back. So just be curious to see how Lenore Ryan plays on the road again at a 3-1 Emory and Henry team.
All right. And K-Ferg, Central Missouri and Fort Hays, you kind of touched on both of those teams a little bit earlier in the show that, if you want to reach your goals, might need to see a little bit of sense of urgency here. So this is a pretty interesting matchup.
Yeah, I agree with that. Central Missouri is going to move up and down the field a lot. Does Fort Hays have what it takes to kind of slow down? But man, they like I said, they got a lot to figure out, especially on offense. Teams that are pretty dependent on the pass, they sometimes can struggle in the red zone, and so they're really going to have to get into the end zone, I think, to keep up with a pretty high-powered offense in Central Missouri.
Yeah.
Chuck, one of the games that caught my attention was Central Wash. Bit of a road trip there to eastern New Mexico, going to play the triple option. That'll be a late game, and that's on a week where they got to travel like that and everything else, that's a big ask. So I think that's an interesting ball game right there. And I mean, this slide's loaded with the triple option, right? You got Minot State directly below there, who just beat Sioux Falls. Probably, I'm going to say, Chuck, their biggest win during their Division II era. That's saying a lot for them right there. I mean, that's so they're going to come in hot against Wayne State, who on paper should be a healthy favorite, but Sioux Falls couldn't stop the triple, and if you can't, that's going to make for a long day.
Yeah, a team playing with confidence can be very dangerous, and Minot's playing with probably more confidence than they've ever had, like as you said, in the Division II era. So yeah, there's some really interesting games there.
Chalk, let's give some love to your Huskies, man. They seem to be on the right trajectory. Can they do it at Kutztown?
Coach, Chuck, we had to put that on the slide here, buddy. We need you to tell us why Bloom's got a shot in this one.
Come on now.
Well, it's always interesting to me because for so many years, Kutztown was kind of just a date on the schedule for Bloomsburg because I think they won that like 20 years in a row. Obviously, it's been a very different story recently. Kutztown is the team that really has the upper hand in this series. So, Bloomsburg being at 3-1, it's a great place for them to be. They're a play away from being undefeated, being a 4-0 football team. Obviously, they need that, trying to build the program back up to what they all think it can be and what we those of us who are alumni expect it to be and want it to be. Man, I'd love to find a path to a victory here. I think it's going to be a really tough chore. Now, KJ Riley, who I talked about a little bit earlier, they've inserted him as a starting quarterback. He's made an enormous difference in their offense. I think that definitely gives them, especially in the passing game, it gives them a chance. They're suddenly very, very thin at running back, though, guys. A lot of people might not know that. The guy who started this past week and took the bulk of the carries was actually 4th on their depth chart at the start of the season. So the first and second guys on the depth chart were not in uniform. So they're pretty thin at that position. Kutztown's defense being what it is, that's a tough ask. But happy to see that they are where they are. All right. Results from last week. Whit, what happened with your pick on the West Florida Grand Valley game?
Yeah, so apparently my secretary who sent you the pics typed out West Florida despite the fact I had zero intention of saying West Florida. I don't actually have a secretary, but we're going to go with it. And I am at the point where I am barely above Tony right now, which has gotten us to where we have desperate measures.
Oh boy.
Love it. Love it.
And business is picking up. Let's rock.
All right.
They sabotaged you.
Hey, they won today, didn't they?
They did indeed.
Yep.
There's nothing more I can say to that. So I guess we'll
That's
just
right.
roll into this.
All about the ugly.
You're kind of the gatekeeper of the picks here. Do you want to run us through the picks here?
Yeah, let's go ahead, and I'm actually going to keep track of them and not have to watch the segment all over again. So let's go. Start Angelo State, who I'm not really sure if we know who they are after 1 month of play, goes to UTPB. Coach Poe, start off the wrong picks with us.
So hey, if you look back on the records, I'm doing pretty dang good. So if you want to be right, just follow my lead. No, I think on this one, guys, I'm going to take UTPB. I think they're at home. I think they're going in the right direction. And Angelo, we still don't really know who they are right now. I'm going to take UTPB at home.
Ferg, are you buying all that, or do you think that UTPB's offense is still?
Well, I think they both have a lot of questions, and kind of similar to what I was mentioning before in the NCAA. The one who doesn't win this game is really going to be behind here, especially when you're looking at Central Washington sort of pacing the conference. But man, Angelo really had they're 2 straight now, but they're not exactly against the best of the conference, and it's the same with UTPB too. Again, as always, I'm likely going to go the home team. In a case like this, I think maybe UTPB may have a little bit more when it comes down to it. But but I'm not particularly sold on either team right now. But give me UTPB for the pick.
Good deal. I was hoping you were going to pick somebody. That is the segment. Tony, what do you got? 51-49. Yep.
I got a hard time following that. Is what I've got.
Yeah.
I think of these two teams, Permian Basin is the only one that's shown any life on offense so far. They're at home. I'll take UTPB.
Chuck, we have 3 in a row here for the Falcons. What direction are you going, fella?
It sounds dangerous, but I'm going with the Falcons too. I think they got a nice win this past weekend over a Midwestern State team that I think has been showing something this year. I think that they're a pretty improved football team. 27-3 final in that. So good performance offensively, but also defensively, where I think is where they needed to make some strides. So I'm going to go with the Falcons here too, and I do think being at home makes a difference.
Well, I'm not. I'm going to take Angelo State to out-physical UTPB. I don't like the Angelo State passing game at all, but they can run the ball well enough, and I think they can defend well enough. I have a feeling this is going to be a get-back game from their loss last year to UTPB. I am taking Angelo State. We're already off to a good start, guys. Okay, Thomas More at Tiffin. Coach Poe, talk to me.
Yeah, I just want to go back to that last pick for 1 second. You can't blame that one on your secretary, just FYI.
Nope. She's not even here tonight.
No, I'm going to take Tiffin this week, guys. I'm going to take Tiffin at home. I think it's going to be a bounce back game for them. So I'm going to take the Dragons.
Ferg, I show that you're muted. Apparently you've been making sounds or something in the interim. Talk to me.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna go with Tiffin as well. I think that they kind of need a bounce back game, and that's no disrespect to Thomas More. I just think that Tiffin will want it more.
Okay, Chuckster, how do you see this one?
I'm going to go against the grain here a little bit. Tiffin's definitely the smart pick and the safe pick, but Thomas More has been playing some good football this year, guys. Their only loss was in the opener against a Davenport team that we know is very talented and pretty good, and they had a shot in that game. Got down big early, and they kind of battled their way back. I think Thomas More is playing some really good football. I think this would be considered an upset, and I'm going to go with the Saints to upset the Dragons.
Well, you know what, Chuck? So am I. I'm taking Thomas More on this, so you might want to immediately reconsider your thoughts from a moment ago. But, Tony, what do you got?
I think everybody in the D2 Fantasy League should be making sure that they're adding Rayvon Vaden to their starting lineups. Get him on the roster
right now. Go to change it
Get
right
him on
now.
the roster if he's not already. I'd take the Saints as well.
Look at this. Boy, who knew the segment was going to turn like this?
Didn't expect
Okay. Next game, Black Hills State at South Dakota Mines. Now, there is a little bit of a story with this one. We're going to go ahead. This is where we go to another slide, guys. See the sleight of hand here. This is the battle for the Homesake Trophy. This is played in Rapid City. That's in South Dakota on the west side of the state, in case anybody knew. But see all the cars parked around there? Chuck, what's the story with this stadium? We've talked about it before, but it's kind of a big deal.
I love this rivalry, and I love this game. It's so cool. It's on my bucket list. I can't wait to go out there and see that one of these years. So that is the home stadium for South Dakota School of Mines, the Hard Rockers, my favorite nickname in all of sports. Drive-in football. Can you believe that? This is like, three tiers of kind of around the stadium parking where fans can actually tailgate. You might even see a few folks set up their chairs in the back of a pickup truck and watch the whole game from up there. And even though artificial noisemakers are technically not permitted, when the Hard Rockers score, you see lights flashing, you hear the horns going, you hear car alarms going off. It's quite unique. And it's just an awesome thing. I love it. And to get back to the picks there, I'll make my pick while you're undoing your sleight of hand.
Yep.
I'm gonna go with the Hard Rockers here. They've won 3 in a row. I think Black Hills won this a year ago. I had the notes written down here, but I think Black Hills won this a year ago. But I'm going with the Hard Rockers here to win this and make it 4 wins in a row to get to 4-2.
Tony, which direction are you going? This might be the biggest coin flip game of the bunch.
All right. Look, if Jake Martinelli plays like he played against Michigan Tech and last week and throws for 3 or 4 bills, yeah, the Hard Rockers probably do well. But I don't know. For some reason, Black Hills State has actually been able to keep games close a little bit better, especially against a couple of decent teams, and they've shown they can stop the run a little bit better. So I'm going to take a stab at Black Hills State in this one.
Okay. Coach Poe, I'm sure you've got strong thoughts in this one.
Man, you can't argue with drive-in dang parking to watch a football game. Give me South Dakota Mines, baby.
There you have it. That's the in-depth analysis we have with you on here.
Hard-hitting analysis right there.
Come on, baby.
Ferg, what do you got for me?
Well, isn't this the longest rivalry in Division II?
I think you're correct on that.
The longest, I think the most played.
Is it it's older than the Battle of the Ravine?
Yeah,
we'll have to check that. You could be right.
So. Anywho, I'm like Chuck. I think, South Dakota Mines had some heartbreakers early on. Now they're 3 in a row. I think they're going to make it 4 in a row. And as a side note, this was a stadium that was on my tour list this summer. So I actually got to park my car. They were repaving the stretches. I got to park my car and take some pictures. And it was very cool. I would love to take it a game like this during the season one year. But, I also don't really do the cold, so I have to go early in the season. So, give me Mines. I'm going to take Mines in this one.
Wrong again, Ferg. Black Hills State's going to win this one. Josh Bresky, old buddy of mine. He used to be the offensive line coach at USF. Black Hills State's going to get back up on the horse after getting thrown off by Mines last week. And, I think Black Hills State, Chuck, if I'm not mistaken, and I have been a few times, I think South Dakota Mines kind of big-timed them last year, like 49-20 or something. 14. So I'm taking Black Hills State to get a little bit of payback in this one. So, and if I know everyone else is going the other way, or most of them, I'm all about it. Go get them, Black Hills.
Yeah,
I picked them too, so you're probably sunk, Whit.
I know. I need to reconsider as these things go along.
I think I flubbed that a couple minutes ago. You're right, Whit. South Dakota Mines did win this one convincingly last year. I was kind of thinking of the year before when Black Hills won out South Dakota Mines. So it's been
it's a great rivalry game out there, and these two teams. It doesn't always matter about the record with them. So. We got our next game up, Virginia State at Johnson C. Smith. Ferg, we're going to go to you last. Tony Nicolette, what do you got?
Boy, I didn't pick Johnson C. Smith in this a couple of weeks ago, and it hurt me dearly, obviously. And that Virginia State's been pretty reliable when we've had them in the pick'ems. So it's hard for me to go against them. But, hey, let's roll with the Golden Bulls, man. They've been hot. They're at home. I'm going to stick with Johnson C. Smith. I won't make the same mistake twice.
Fair enough. Chuck, which direction are you leaning in this one?
Well, I did go with the Golden Bulls over Virginia Union, and they came through for me. So I'm going to stick with them. I'm going to go with Johnson C. Smith here as well.
Coach Poe, going to need for you to sit up in the seat. There you go.
I got you, buddy.
What? By the way, don't let this sway you at all. Massey likes Virginia State by a touchdown. So, Coach Poe, it's time for you to pick now.
But don't let it sway you.
Not at all.
No, Chuck, you've been high on Johnson C. Smith all year. You've said it. I don't know that I've necessarily drank the Kool-Aid on it yet, but I think when this to me is a game where you have to prove it. Virginia State's a proven entity. We know about Virginia State. I think for me, I'm going to take Johnson C. Smith, but I think this is a game for me that I want to see them absolutely put them away and just laminate that, hey, they're here. They're undefeated. They're 6-0, and they're the real deal this year.
Well, I like Johnson C. Smith, guy that we don't talk a lot, their quarterback, Darius Ocean. Not Billy Ocean, the guy who had Caribbean Queen back in the day. That was a heck of
Or
a job.
Frank.
Yeah. No, I think it was Billy Ocean, but yeah.
It was.
So
Both.
that said, I like him as a starter for them. I think he's thrown like 10 touchdowns, 0 picks, and they're going to be 6-0 after this game. I like Johnson C. Smith. Ferg, tell me why I got it right.
Well, the one thing about Virginia State that really stands out is that it'll be remarkable if he can escape this game without an interception, because Virginia State's been pretty hot in that secondary the last couple games. And so yeah, so that represents a bit of a challenge. But I do like what Ocean has been doing lately and really spreading the ball around beyond just Brevin Caldwell. And then the route that they had, that John C. Smith had yesterday, they didn't play their top 2 running backs, and the third string running back still got 100 yards rushing, and that tells you how deep that they kind of are on that side of the ball. So, my pick is going to be with Johnson C. Smith. I think that Massey isn't really watching the games here, and I think that Virginia State will represent a challenge for them. But I think ultimately Johnson C. Smith is on a bit of a different level right now. So give me the Golden Bulls as well.
Berg, in terms of, we talk about the top 25 teams a lot on this show. Darius Ocean, what squad was he with a year ago at this time?
He was a transfer from Rhode Island a year ago.
Okay. Are you sure he wasn't at Valdosta State?
I don't think so. Was it?
I'm going with Valdosta State, and the year before that, West Kentucky,
Really?
and he was behind Austin Reed.
Oh,
Come on, Ferg. Know your HBCU.
You know what? At the beginning of the year,
Do I need to go guest this week, Ferg?
You might need to.
No. and nobody needs that. But anyway, moving on with the games, guys. We've got Grand Valley State at Davenport, who played UCM right to the limit a few weeks ago. This is a kind of a tough one. Does Davenport have enough defense to hang around in this football game? Chuck Bittner.
I want to think that Davenport can hang here. They really do have a knack for grinding out, low scoring, tight ball games. I just don't see it. I'm going to go with Grand Valley State. I could probably overanalyze it, but I just think the Lakers are a better football team.
Tony Nicolette. The Lakers are a 26-point favorite. Are they gonna cover that kind of number and win that kind of game, or does Davenport compete a little bit more?
So Davenport absolutely is in a position to compete here, guys. I mean, again, they proved that they can hang with UCM, even though UCM might be missing a few guys. That physicality that Davenport plays with, and I've heard other people in the GLIAC talk about how physical Davenport is. For me, and in Davenport's defense, they didn't have Jason Whitaker in their game last year, but at the end of the day, the last 3 games in this series have been a grand total of 129-7. And until Davenport is able to do something about that, it's hard for me to pick against Grand Valley in this game.
Coach Poe, you got a curious look on your face like Davenport might be your call.
No, not at all. I think it's Grand Valley. I think Grand Valley is going to win. I think it's really important, though. They go out there and they play. I think if you go in there, you can't take the week off. Yeah, you beat a ranked West Florida team, but you can't rest on that. You have to go in there and you have to beat Davenport. They're good enough. They can surprise you, and they can get you. But I think Grand Valley is going to win this thing.
Ferg, do you think Grand Valley? Do you think there's a chance that they have a little bit of a letdown after such a big kind of hyped up game with West Florida they just finished with?
It's kind of tempting to think about taking Davenport in this game because of that physicality that was just mentioned, and but I'm still not sold on the offense and getting into the end zone, and I think that in a low scoring affair that probably favors Grand Valley, even though they're on the road. On the road.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stick with the Lakers as well.
I could see a slow going first half. I think Davenport can, that's a physical game Grand Valley just played, and I still think Grand Valley ends up kind of cruising. I don't know if it's to that number that we talked about or not, but next game up, Minnesota Duluth at Augustana, 2-2. One of those was to South Dakota State, which we talked about a few weeks ago. The other one was their loss, yesterday to Minnesota State Moorhead. Tony, this one seems like a tough one to call. Which way are you heading?
Boy, howdy, is it ever? Because, I mean, they've both lost to Moorhead, and their wins are against teams you'd kind of expect them to win. So, I mean, it's really hard to get a feel for which one of these teams is more capable. I probably tend to lean towards Duluth, but something tells me Augustana will have something for them at home in this one. So I'll take the Vikings.
Fair enough. Ferg, how are you seeing this one, buddy?
Well, I noticed that a certain someone dropped the running back from Augie off of their fantasy football team. And that tells me that doesn't give me a lot of confidence here. So I'm going to go with Duluth in this one.
Ferg with the fantasy football angle for the win.
Hey, it's intel. May not be good intel, but it's intel.
Coach Poe, you have a in deep thought look on your face right now. Either that or your screen's stuck. I'm not sure which.
I think my screen is stuck, but
it is. Well, we're going to go with the confused look for a while, nonetheless. But let's go ahead. Tell me. We'll come on back to you. Whoop. There you go. You had something in your eye. We kind of like the puzzled look a little bit better, actually. But Coach Poe, which way are you going here?
I'm going to take Augie at home.
Okay. And then Chuck, this is a tough one. Are you taking Duluth to go in there and do their thing, or is Augustana the better team, you think?
I'm going to go with Duluth here. You kind of led with this. This is a very tough one to read. Both teams have had a little bit of success this year. Both got lockweighed by the Dragons. I don't know what to take out of either of those results, but I know that Duluth leads the league in scoring offense and scoring defense. That seems like a lot to hang your hat on. So I'm going to go with the Bulldogs here.
Ferg, the reference you made earlier was Jared Epperson, their running back. He had been concussed in the South Dakota State game. He actually returned, had right around 100 yards, caught some balls, and scored a touchdown. So I might be looking right back at him again now that he's back healthy and going. I like Augustana at home in this game. I think their defense will represent a little bit better than they did this last game. And I think that their offense is kind of sneaky good and better than I thought it was going to be this year. I'll take the Vikings at home in that one. Then we got Chuck, we've kind of been waiting for like a real marquee PSAC game this year, and we get it as the month closes. Chuck, I'm going to start with you first with Slippery Rock at IUP. How do you see this one, buddy?
Very difficult one to call. I can see this one going either way. I'm going to lean Slippery Rock here. I think some people are maybe a little down on Slippery Rock because we're not necessarily seeing the explosive offensive numbers that we've seen in the past. I actually view that very differently. I kind of like the way Slippery Rock is winning some games right now. They're playing a little bit more of a ball control offense, controlling the tempo of the game in a different way, in a way that we haven't really seen them do before. And they're playing some outstanding defense. And I think IUP is still a little unproven to this point. The schedule hasn't been super challenging. Now, they did play Ashland in the opener, and despite jokes that we make here and there, Ashland's a quality opponent. They won that game. Since then, I think they haven't really been challenged by a team that's really at their level. I mean, Lockhaven pushed them to the very end, but I do believe that IUP has a lot more talent there. That's just a really good performance by Lockhaven. So, not really sure which team is really better at this point, but I'm leaning Slippery Rock.
How about Tony? And by the way, Tony, Slippery Rock is a 3-point favorite according to the experts at Massey.
3-point favorite on the road. Sold. Give me Slippery Rock.
Tony's got the rock. Ferg. I don't think there's really much of a fantasy angle here, Ferg. What do you got?
No, but there is a different angle, and I mentioned at the beginning of our season that IUP was my bounce back team.
That's right.
And
Yes,
in
you
order to
did.
do that, they really have got to show up in this game. And kind of like what Chuck mentioned, I think, both teams still have a lot to prove. And so I'm going to take IUP as somebody going a little bit different here and sticking with the Crimson Hawks.
Justin, we're getting a lot of split in here in the last few games. What do you got? You got Slippery Rock on the road, or do you think IUP wins this one?
I'm going to take Slippery Rock on the road. I don't know. No particular reason, just Slippery Rock on the road. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the victory this week, baby.
Well, let me tell you why you're wrong. We're going to go ahead and take Karst Hunter, who returned last week, fellow South Dakotan. I think that he's going to make just enough plays in a low-scoring game that I'm going to go with IUP. And the fact that Ferg has him makes me feel even better about my pick.
We didn't acknowledge the fact that I went 6-0, so I thought we'd just go ahead and drop that in there right now since we're at the end. Thank you very much. May not happen again, but we're going to live with it for now.
We were trying to move to the next screen as quickly as we could, actually. Yeah. Well, by the way, that's South Dakota Mines, in case anybody was wondering. And Chuck, we've got some video. Friends who helped us with video, anything from Harding Sports Network, Flow Sports, NE10 on Flow Sports, Grand Valley always does a great job with their video, and I really wanted to kind of point that out to them. We appreciate the quality of the product that they put on out. Chuck, I don't know anything about our last video partner in the bottom left. What can you tell me there?
Threw that in for them. That's Claris Multimedia. They are a New England-based organization, a lot of photography, some filmography too. Threw them in there because they provided the photograph from one of New Haven's games that we used for the thumbnail image. And when we specifically ask for a photo and they provide it, we'd like to make sure that we give them a shout out. So thanks very much to them. And also thanks to the New Haven Sports Information Department who responded immediately when we asked. So love it when people are that responsive. Oh boy, we're looking at this again every week. I'm tired of seeing some of these faces.
We're gonna shuffle them around a little bit.
Weekly reminder to visit D2Football.com throughout the week for columns, podcasts. Just as a reminder, top 25 update on Monday, players of the week on Tuesday, and then of course you can find columns and podcasts from Wednesday morning, sometimes even Tuesday night through Friday afternoon into Friday evening. All of our talent contributing all the amazing stuff that they do. Please be sure to visit the website to do that. We really do need the clicks. It helps a lot, helps with the Google ad revenue, some of the other things that happen there. So I know those things can be found directly on YouTube. We appreciate you finding stuff there, but the more things that you can access from the website, that really does help us out. So we very much appreciate that. Whit, latest on Brandon. We haven't actually done an update here for a while. We've gotten really, really close to the GoFundMe goal. We'd really like to help push this over the finish line here. Help us with the latest on how our buddy Brandon's doing. I know people ask. I get asked on an almost daily basis.
Yeah, and we wanted to make sure that we talked about this, right when we got the shows all going as the year began. We want to intermittently kind of come back to this, guys. We're just short of the goal that we're looking for GoFundMe. There, you can see all the information on the screen. And he's in a situation, as we've talked about before, where the left side of his body, his left arm and his left leg, he has not been able to regain any kind of energy in either of those areas, and that's a tough deal right now. And so he's still going ahead, and we're working through the situation of trying to get ongoing therapy and things of that sort. There's a great shot with some of his therapy team, and I have actually even met a few of those when I was on my last visit on down there back at the very beginning of the season. And we're always going to be kind of beating the drum for our guy Brandon, and I'm hoping that everyone else there kind of understands how much he means to us, and how we're going to always be pushing for him like this. And for everyone who is not aware, we've gotten to the point now where Brandon has watched a few of the shows, and he'll go ahead and joke around with us a little bit, about stuff that's happened on the show. And so I'm still going to ask that people not look to go out of their way to reach out to him directly on phone and email and other stuff. He's not at the point where he's trying to do all that. But you know what? He still likes to be able to kind of see what's happening here with everything we're doing, Chuck.
All right. Thank you for that update, Whit. I know I get asked, and probably every one of us gets asked several times throughout the week how he's doing, and happy to have some news there to share. Guys, there were a few comments in the chat, but most of that was just everyone kind of chatting with each other, sharing some good info, a little bit of banter back and forth. I'd actually like to just end it with the update on Brandon. So that's going to be our show for tonight. Guys, it was great to have the whole family back together. It was fun doing this last week with a slimmer group and working through doing that in a different way, but happy to have everyone back together. It's always fun to do this. Remember to catch the columns and podcasts throughout the week, and then we will be back here next Sunday night for Inside D2 Football. Thanks, everyone.